to the show!
Hey, welcome to Larry King Now. I'm Dennis Miller filling in for Larry today. I want to welcome a cat who, he's international rock legend, Gene Simmons, co-founded the rock group Kiss, and transaction completed, and the popular rock-inspired restaurant Rock and Brews with locations in the U.S. and Mexico. Plans for the first Rock and Brews Casino Resort. Currently on the road, the Kiss End of the Road tour with world dates in Australia, Japan, across the U.S. We can get to all the business, and Gene, I admire that about him, and Glengarry Glen Ross, always big closing. I want to talk a little rock, too, and I want to kiss the ring a little. Gene, how are you, my friend?
I couldn't be happier. I was going to do the fun patois, the semantics, but of course I'm not anti-semantic.
First blow delivered.
I'm the luckiest guy. You know, coming to America at 8.5 years of age with my mother, and not speaking a word of English and having access to all this, you know, the American dream. I so much believe in that. Unfortunately, it's become embarrassing for people to even talk about that. The political climate and all that stuff, people have no idea what polarization means. I lived through the Vietnam era where you used to get beaten up on the street for having a different point of view. We are in the promised land. I come from Israel, but trust me, this is the promised land. I'm the luckiest guy that ever walked the face of the earth.
Well, I feel the same way, and I'm a little crestfallen that it's gotten. And I can't wake up every day and talk about it to other people or try to convince them.
No,
but it is the.
It's nothing, because if you talk to your grandparents and the older folks, they understand what bad times were.
Yeah.
My mother was 14 and she was in the concentration camps of Nazi Germany. You want to talk about bad times. Not too long ago, 50 million people perished off the face of the earth violently in concentration camps and all that. You're talking about bad times. People just have different points of views now, and they're arguing. And
I agree with that completely, Gene. Listen, I honest to God think that I was at a Kiss farewell tour show 20 years ago. Am I hallucinating?
I think I was on that one too.
But I mean, is this...
No, it happened. Well, it's a fair question. What happened was that Peter, Chris, and Ace Frehley, who were the original founding members with Paul and myself, 46 years ago, yes, I still have hair, 46 years ago, not everybody is designed to run a marathon, it's fair to say. And not everybody should be in a band that lasts decades and decades. So by the turn of the 2000s, you know, in the early 2000s, it became dysfunctional to the extreme. They were asked to leave or left on their own volition 3 different times because of the cliche of cliches: bad behavior, unprofessionalism, drugs, alcohol. It's like, it's been done, come on. And then we looked at each other and said, you know, if we can't live up to the you wanted the best, you got the best, the hottest band in the world, let's just call it quits. Right. You got the cash, the fame, and, you know, thank you, Jesus, and go off into the shadow.
Let's not besmirch the legacy here. And
so we stopped. We stopped for a while and kept getting a deluge of gifts and inquiries and, well, why can't you do it? And, you know, you got a flat tire, change the tire. Why do you want to stop going? And Paul and I had a moment where we just said, you know what, we're thinking small. I always thought of the Beatles, nobody will ever take the place of anybody. But Ringo's not an original member. No. He took the place of Pete Best. So when you take a look at all the bands, oh, it can never be a different lead singer in Van Halen. Actually, there can, and there has been. And I'm the guy that found them, so I know what I'm talking about. And so...
And the Plasmatics, too, right? Or did you find Wendy O as a solo artist?
Well, I produced her and, oh God, a ton of them. Used to manage Liza Minnelli, and you don't have enough time.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to take you off that Beatles thread, because I can stay there all day, especially on the 50th anniversary of Abbey Road.
At the height of that record, by the way, they weren't getting along. Yoko's bed was in the studio, right. And when they're walking across the street, they barely talk to each other. And at the height of that dysfunction, that brilliant record. But getting back to what I was saying, which is that this is the final tour. It's a long one. We've got another 2 years of staying out there. Mm-hmm. We've already done 93 cities around the world, coming back again. But the reality is that I'm 70. By the time I'm 72, it's time to get off the stage. You know,
Yes.
we've both seen bands that stayed too long on that stage. Still looking good, not too much of a gobble. Schmeckle works, everything's good.
I think the true outlaw gesture at this point, and you guys have always been outliers, would be get out at a precise moment and not come back.
That's right.
Because that becomes the new cliche to just like.
We all know you want to do it. Get off the stage before they're tired of you. And when you introduced us at the foot of the Statue of Liberty, you know, in New York City or whatever, for the VH1 VM something awards, you do one or two songs, get off the stage. Leave them wanting more. Don't stay on there too long. So we don't do long shows, 2 hours, no more. And you want your career. Like Muhammad Ali should have quit at the top. Tyson, who's a friend, is a good guy. When you're on top, thank you very much. Go off like Shane, Alan Ladd Sr.
I imagine it would be important to you guys to burn it down on your last show. And I just mean like burn it down where you walk off and you think, God, that might be the best show we've done in 47 years.
Wouldn't that be great?
I mean, I'd like rest up. I'd get treatments,
Yeah.
whatever, like Norman
Back
Desmond.
rubs.
I'd get into the cold packs and
Extra
all that.
Fox's You Bet in the Milk.
Just to come out and like
Millennials have
burn
no idea
it
what
down.
That would be the best, because the champions, you're running your marathon, but when you see the finish line, I think you and I would speed up instead of slowing down, right?
I'd rather croak it out, breaking the tape in the way they remembered me to some degree than I would.
I'm with you.
Like,
You
yeah.
want to be able to come and go at the same time.
Yeah. Next, Gene Simmons on his Israeli roots, which probably is part of his doggedness. Well, certainly he talked about his mom and coming over here at a young age. We'll hear a little bit about how tough it can get and also how the industry's changed since he first started. Stay with us on this edition of Larry King Now. Welcome back to Larry King Now, just talking flicks with my eclectic friend, Gene Simmons, during the break. And Gene Simmons, by the way, I have to ask you, did you ever have the horn for Gene Simmons, who was beautiful back in the, Gene Simmons?
The original Gene Simmons?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was an actress, for those of you who were just born last week, a wonderful actress named Gene Simmons, who was
beautiful.
married. Gorgeous. I was staying at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel in the days when she was still there.
Oh, really?
And yes. And I didn't know what was going on, but I got a call in the middle of the night, and before I get a chance to say hello, it was a deep-voiced gentleman saying, "Darling, I've missed you so much." And so clearly, later on, I figured out Gene Simmons is staying in the same hotel, the wonderful, iconic female actress.
What a great story. Now, listen, you were born in Israel. You come here. What's still in you from Israel? What steals you?
It is true what you said, that if you come from a hardship, you never forget that. If you have the hunger in your belly and you didn't always have food, you'll always remember that, and it's difficult to throw food away and all that stuff. I grew up, I was born 6 months after the state of Israel was declared independent or not. You can argue politically, historically, and so on, but there is a country called Israel, and I happen to have been born there. I have no choice in the matter. That's where I came. 6 months afterwards, there was no infrastructure, no roads, no brands. You used to get newspapers with some rice. And I remember my mother, we'd stand in line for hours to get bread, which was just, cut away. There was no brands or anything. Make a long story short, my father, who unfortunately abandoned us when I was about 6 or 7, on the weekends would go off to war, and he would hitch to the front lines because there was no transportation. I didn't know any of this. All I knew was I had my crust of bread and jam. That is still the bane of my waistline.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, when we first came to America, my Aunt Magda put us up for a weekend, and I couldn't speak English or anything. And I saw cars and roadways. I'd never seen that in Israel. Small, you just had dirt roads and horses and stuff. And
different planet.
Everything was big. The people were big. The sandwiches were enormous. And I walk into Aunt Magda's kitchen, and there's a refrigerator there. And I didn't know what it was. We didn't have one. And I opened up the thing, and there was all these jars and things. I didn't know what to do with it. And my Aunt Magda said, with a spoon, "Here, taste this." It was jam. Schmuckers. And I opened the can, and she gave me the spoon, and she meant for me to take a taste. I ate the whole damn thing. I never tasted anything like that. Both my mom and my Aunt Magda were just laughing
Beautiful.
tears, and I didn't know what they were
Tell me
laughing
about your mom, Gene. She obviously is. Now, you said your father, you came here with your mom. Did you come with your father too?
No. So by 6 or 7, my father was gone, and he remarried 4 or 5 other times. My mother, bless her, lived until 93. She just passed
Do
away.
you share her name, or do you?
Florence.
Florence.
She is the DNA that makes up any morality or ethics I have. They teach you about Columbus and stuff like 1 and 1 is 2 in school. They don't teach you the fiber of what it means in Yiddish terms, menschhood. Like what is the nature of good versus evil? Because it's all about choices, and you're lucky to be in America where you do have choices. To lead a good life and to make good and be kind to people and all that stuff. My mother's all of that. I would understand if my mother thought the world was a terrible place. As a child of the Holocaust,
Yes.
our entire family was wiped out in front of her. She saw her mother, my grandmother, walk into the gas chamber, and before she did that, she pointed at my mother and said, "Live," in Hungarian. In other words, survive.
Well, God bless her, because she emotionally suckled you. Look, your whole life, you
Everything.
see the upside. And that comes from her, and God bless her.
She's always with me.
The girlie at James was the first one you met, baby. And now with Shannon, how's things? She's a great dame for you, right?
We've been together 36 years, and 29 of those first years, I was a jackass, asshole, completely self-absorbed because you're in a band. Not caused, because those were my choices. And you don't know what you've got until you start, because we don't mature as men for a long time. We look, I'm 6'2", and I've big, deep voice and all that stuff, but you're just 14-year-old horny boys, and you don't grow up for a long time. So I'm 70 now, and at 62, I had the sort of moment of, I'm not going to live forever, and on my deathbed, who do you want around you? Strangers who don't really care about you, or your family, your loved ones, and all that. And at that point, I dropped to my knees, and I asked her to marry me. And I was always against marriage. I still am for young people.
When the light bulb goes on, in that instant, you must have thought, please have me.
I still believe that people who think about it aren't qualified to think about it. Your genes and everything. Young people say, I've got to have 2.5. Oh my God, I'm 25. I got, give me the white picket fence and everything. You're not considering that half the population are the males of the species, and we have testosterone in our system, and we're not listening. I am never going to leave. This is the only marriage I'll ever have.
Well, it's so funny to watch you swoony, brother. And you get swoony when you talk about her. So good for you. After the break, we'll get to know Gene Simmons better with a round of If You Only Knew. Stay right there. Gene Simmons, Larry King Now. Hey, folks, welcome back to Larry King Now. Dennis Miller filling in for Larry. My guest today, and an overall good hang, Gene Simmons. Gene, I have to ask you about the recording industry today. Now, as I often said, you're like a Glengarry guy. Coffee is for closers. So I think you would have been the first one to figure out how to play digital streaming and all that. Is it good for the industry? Bad for the industry? Can somebody still make a buck out there?
My heart goes out. I've said this 10 years ago when streaming and downloading and all that stuff was for free. Radiohead, it bears noting, tried to do a brand new record and said to their fans, pay whatever you will. It's interesting to note it hasn't been done since, because it doesn't work. If you leave the doors open in the supermarket and say, pay whatever you want, people just go in and pay nothing.
I think Lars Ulrich might have been the first to bridle, right, against Napster. Do I remember that?
That's what I hear, yes. But it doesn't work, because people would rather get stuff for free. Mm-hmm. And my heart goes out to new bands. There's so much good talent out there that will never get a chance. I mean, right now in the zeitgeist, ich kann auch sprechen Deutsch, so I know what I'm talking about. They think, okay, music industry, I get on X Factor or The Voice and I sing and then I have a career. They have no idea what it means. The other thing is that record companies simply cannot make money. My daughter, Sophie, is a huge Spotify writer, singer, and all that. She's written for Rick Ross and Yellow Claw and all these kinds of. She got tons of songs that have been downloaded millions and millions of times. You can download something 10 million times and make a few $100.
Wow.
So the record industry is dead for new artists. Rock is dead. The last great rock band was the Foo Fighters, and that's 20 years ago. You can't name another rock band because you can't make a living.
Yeah.
When I first started in '73, there was still a record industry, and the record company, which we used to talk badly about, was the best friend you ever had. They gave you millions of
Looking back
dollars
on it.
and allowed you, and tour support and all that, and they only took money back from the records you sold. So you sold records, made songs that were great, and then people showed up and got all that live money and the licensing and the merchandising. The record, until legislators become well-educated and understand the nature of business, they're unqualified to talk about copyrights or the record industry. Right now, today, there are movies that come out, like we're going to go see Maleficent tonight, the Angelina Jolie movie, and they invited us, and thank you very much. Right now, there's going to be somebody with a camera taking that thing, and people download it a million times in China.
A common file,
and
everybody has it.
What's the legal recourse? Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing will happen to those people.
I'm sure Jimmy Page had trouble with Peter Grant at some point, and he looks back on it and thinks, at least I had a guy in there settling up the door, getting it together.
And Peter used to physically...
Oh, yeah, Peter. All right, let's play a game of if you only knew superpower you wish you had.
Eternal life.
Secret talent. What don't I know about you? Somebody told me that you collect stamps. Or?
Well, I'm an only child, so I had a lot of time to do stuff. You know, I can blow smoke out of my ass. I can actually blow smoke coming out of my mouth. I can move each eye individually. I'm really good at balancing stuff. And minutia, you can do sociology, history.
Yeah, you got a good trivia knowledge, I can tell.
It's not trivia. Knowledge is knowledge.
You're right.
The
Consequential,
most trivial,
I should say. You've got good consequential.
I retain, like a good constipation of...
If you weren't a musician, what other occupation might interest you?
I was actually a sixth grade teacher in Spanish Harlem before the rock thing in 1804.
Find it rewarding?
1972. It was, but on the second day, it was in Spanish Harlem, so a lot of the kids were from dysfunction families. So you learn a few phrases in Spanish, you know, la maricón, la tuyo, tu madre, which doesn't mean good morning Jewish person. These are not from the environment. So it's difficult to teach or just infuse get the fire lit in the belly to read. It's all out there and it's free when you've got dysfunction at home and drugs on the street and violence and all that.
Instrument you wish you could play?
All.
Yeah?
All of them.
What are your chops on? What's your main thing?
I mean, I can play stringed instruments, and I do it by ear. I still can't read or write music. I can get by guitar and bass and keyboards. When I do demos, I play all the instruments. But people don't know that if you play Let It Be, it's called a triad. Bum, 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 da, 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 do, re, mi. And you can play hundreds and hundreds of songs. And I can show you very quickly. In fact, I charge people $5,000 to come and be with me, and you write a song within 2 hours, even though you've never played an instrument in your life. It's so simple. And then, of course, it doesn't mean you can write a good song, but you can learn to play an instrument in under 2 hours, almost any instrument. Not well, but you can learn to play.
I mean, you could obviously become an all-timer without actually reading or writing music.
But when you think about it, all animals make music, whether it's whales or dogs or birds and all that stuff. And for the people who say, you know, I'm tone deaf, I don't know anything, when they get in the shower, they're writing songs.
Oh, you're right.
Ba, 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 ba. That's a melody. Those are all unique melodies, and they're yours. If you put a word, I got up this morning and Dennis Miller was here. You know, it's like you put the words to it, boom, you got your song. Doesn't mean it's a great song.
No,
Could
but
be.
you got something.
But by the way, we dream music. McCartney will tell you he dreamed or dreamt, depending on what you think is the right word, yesterday. He woke up, he had that melody in his mind, and when he woke up and he kept asking Len and everybody, you ever hear this melody? I don't know where it came from. They go, no. I go, oh, I must be.
That's a nice one to wake up to. In our final moments, Gene Simmons will answer some of your questions from social media. Don't go away right after this. Welcome back to Larry King Now. I'm Dennis Miller, filling in for Larry, and my guest today is Gene Simmons. Tell me about this libation.
I own the money bag logo, you know, the classic
Sure.
bag with the dollar sign, and have for 28 years. And it's been in clothing lines and public with Simmons books and all that. And about a year and a half ago, launched money bag sodas, which are now across the country, and thank you for that. 7-Elevens and all that stuff, and doing very well. We just launched the money bag vodka. I don't really drink, but I think people should have whatever they want. The menu of life, pick what you like. And the vodka is 5 times distilled. It's about to enter America. It's already a huge hit in Canada, and an awful lot of other stuff. IMG, the world's largest licensing merchandising entity, agents and stuff, and I are teaming up because I have a few other brands.
Yeah, you're an idea
clothing, buildings, celebrity-based real estate, a lot
like
of
Don
new stuff.
Draper. All right, Rice and Knox on Facebook. Would you ever consider a Vegas residency? Now, there's an idea.
Sure.
Yeah. I always admired Celine coming in from Lake Las Vegas. She'd hire the chopper. They'd put her right on the roof of the Coliseum. And, you know, she
I think
always
it
did
bears.
that.
I think it bears noting that I hear white people say this about white artists. Don't you have enough money, or aren't you too old? They never said that to B.B. King. He was on stage until he dropped dead.
Still dig the action.
And that's the way you want to do it. I did the eulogy for Chuck Berry when he passed. He played right up until the time. That's what you do in life.
Because the moment they put the axe down, they die. Why
That's
die
it.
any earlier
It's
than
true.
you have to die?
Retirement means your heart's going to start slowing down. Your veins are going to get filled with crap, and you're going to die.
Cody Joe Brown. Now, that sounds like a rocker to me on Facebook. What's been the biggest thing that you still have to accomplish in your life? You're at 70. You look like you're going to get the century mark for sure.
The next.
Skin looks good.
The next.
Yeah, what's the next
thing?
big?
The next thing is Christianity. Tax-free income, no 50% to the government. I take it all. You just have to start it the right way, Dennis. No, I mean, everything starts with this idea. Whether you're the Wright brothers and have a bicycle shop in Kitty Hawk or wherever that is to this day, and decide we're going to fly. Icarus be damned. We can fly. We'll figure it out. And all these things. And Elon Musk, I can't say enough about guys like that. Musk and a few others, and Richard Branson, real big thinkers who think of, they're futurists, but the future is now.
Yes.
And the difference between the future over there and today is you actually start doing something about it now. So I like the idea. Every day I'm scribbling and making notes. And then the difference between the dreamers and this huge success is an awful lot of hard work. You weren't born Dennis Miller. You had to, there's no school class. What was the class that taught you how to be Dennis and have the repartee and the Hadas Ovasak and the Rivase? You self-taught yourself. And the mountain ain't coming to you, Muhammad. You had to go where, if you were in Wisconsin, nothing would happen. Sorry, Wisconsin.
Dom Donati, the Stones, Bon Jovi, Metallica, and Kiss have been around forever. What's your take on the lack of new rock bands? Well, we talked about it a little. What do you think killed it?
Well, Dennis, you're right. We took Bon Jovi out on their first tour.
You did?
AC/DC, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Motley, you name it, we took them out. The secret of longevity is there's no way around it. If you're lucky if you have the right thing, you're lucky if you're born at the right time, and you're lucky if you're in the right place. And then there's no denying that the most important element is hard work.
Exactly, Jim.
And the people who succeed aren't the smartest, the fastest. You remember that the turtle actually won the race, not the hare.
Yes.
You have to be willing to work longer and harder than the guy who's better looking.
It's the joy of life.
And it's worth noting that the largest selling book of all time, a book that our people wrote called the Bible, which we gave the rest of you, it actually does say, by the sweat of thine own brow. When I was a kid at 6 years of age, and I went up into the hills of Carmel, a real biblical place that actually exists in Israel, it's not really much of a mountain. You just go up the hill, picked cactus fruit, and sold it at the bus stop. I was filled with pricks, and I was tired. I was a 6-year-old kid, and they gave us half a pruta, like half a penny. And at the end of the day, I had a handful of coins, which I put down on the table. My mother came over and she said, "My little man, there ain't nothing as sweet as working hard and getting that emotional result. And I bought an ice cream cone, which I still taste to this day. You'll
That's the
never
whole,
remember.
There, that's life.
You'll never
Big
forget.
thanks to my guest, Gene Simmons. You can see him on tour with Kiss right now, and they're doing it for another couple years. A little plug for me. The podcast, The Dennis Miller Option, is on Westwood One and iTunes. Thanks to Larry, and we'll see you the next time. Larry King now. Thank you, Gina.
Rock and Roll All Night brings you interviews, reviews, concerts, music, and more. So for more Rock and Roll All Night content, click subscribe.